Hello, everyone. Thanks everyone here for being here for Alexie's webinar. Happy here to present our first webinar of 2019 season. And it's CROSH graduate student Alexie Dennie here to speak on sleep. So she'll speak for approximately 30 minutes. And at that point, we'll have a quick discussion or question period here with people in attendance. And for those that are online, you'll notice that there's a chat box. You can enter any questions anytime throughout the presentation, and it won't bother her. I'll kind of monitor them and lost them at the end. So I think with that, just for time's sake, we'll just get right to it and ask Alexie to begin her presentation.
Just left and right. Okay, thanks, Brandon. So today we're going to be talking about some lifestyle factors that affect sleep quality.
Sorry.
Can you do your little video though, Brandon? It's still hot in the middle of the screen. I guess it doesn't matter. Okay.
So the context of the presentation to begin, we're going to kind of go through some facts and stats because who doesn't like numbers? And then we're going to keep on going with a bit of definitions just to kind of make sure everybody's on the same level field. And then afterwards, we're going to really dive into some lifestyle factors, some sleep hygiene stuff that you could do before going to bed or throughout the day to help improve your overall sleep quality.
Where's my mouse? Sorry about that. Okay, good.
So to start with, here are some statistics. So in 1995, there's actually 1 out of 25 Canadians that were actually sleep deprived, and in 2017, we saw that 1 in 3 Canadians were sleep deprived. In 2016, Canada was named the 3rd most sleep deprived nation in the world, and research actually showed that humans naturally sleep about 8 hours a day for every 24 hours. And interestingly enough, when the wake period exceeds a period of 16 hours, it's actually comparable to having a blood alcohol concentration of 0.5 to 0.8, meaning you're practically intoxicated. Sleep isn't necessarily a new concept that we've been talking about. We've been talking about it for centuries. Even Shakespeare actually talks about it in a couple of his plays that he wrote. So for example, in his Julius Caesar play, he writes, "Thou hast no figure nor no fantasies, which busy care draws in the brain of men. Therefore thou sleepst so sound," which actually suggests that if you have an empty mind and you're a stress-free life, this will actually help improve your overall sleep. You'll have a better sleep at night. And so although most of Shakespeare's references when he talks about sleep actually imply death, some of them actually do reference sleep. The thing with sleep is that we are actually talking about it. In the media, it's everywhere. We have so many articles that have been published over this was the last year here actually. Yet the issue with these articles is that they're only strictly stating that there's a problem with sleep quality. None of them actually go out of their way to explain what can be done in order to improve overall sleep. Now, this is an issue because sleep deprivation is an epidemic. So in the 1960s, people slept on average 8.45 hours a night. And in 2016, 1 in 3 people were sleeping 6 hours or less. So in that 60-year time frame, we saw that there was a reduction of almost 3 hours in the sleep duration of overall populations. Now we're going to kind of dive into some terminology just to make sure that everybody understands what I'm talking about and everybody's on the same playing field. Sleep is characterized by a loss of consciousness, reduced sensory activity and muscle activity, which limits the body's ability to react to its external environment. Sleep isn't actually really fully understood yet, but what we do know is that it's a really complex phenomenon. Sleep is a necessary behavioral state that runs on a 24-hour cycle, and it's controlled by an internal clock called the Circadian Rhythm, which we're going to discuss about later. So although the definition of sleep seems quite gray still, research agrees that a large number of factors do affect sleep on a daily basis. Sleep seems to have a bi-directional relationship with our lifestyle as well. Now, when we talk about sleep quality and quantity, these are actually two complete different factors that do end up working hand in hand. So when we make reference to sleep quality, it's the ability to go through all the sleep stages that we're going to see next in an efficient manner. It's the feeling of waking up the next morning feeling refreshed. Sleep quality is very subjective, although it can be measured objectively. If you were to go for a polysomnography exam or an actigraphy test, on paper, your sleep might look good, but you still have the ability of waking up the next morning and saying, but I don't really feel like I slept well. So sleep quality has a very subjective side to it. Compared to sleep quality, where it can be measured very objectively. So it's measured, it's accorded a numerical value. And it's also easier to stand there and watch someone sleep and time them sleep than it is to try and determine what their sleep quality is like. As for the sleep stages themselves, it's divided into two stages. So we have the slow wave sleep and the rapid eye movement sleep. Slow wave sleep itself is subdivided in 4 different stages. Stages 1 and 2 are known as light sleep, and stages 3 and 4 are known as deep sleep. After the body has gone through these four stages, it goes into rapid eye movement sleep, known as REM sleep. REM sleep is the period in which we dream, and it's very important for memory and learning as well. And so when I talk about the ability of efficiently going through all of the sleep cycles, it's actually going from light sleep through REM sleep back up to light sleep into REM sleep again. And when I say that sleep quality and quantity go hand in hand, it's because in order to be able to have good sleep quality and go through all these cycles efficiently, you should be sleeping on average 7 to 8 hours a night. And so it's that 7 to 8 hours a night that allows the body to sleep and to feel refreshed the next morning. The circadian rhythm is a very complex phenomenon that actually regulates the entire body. So it doesn't necessarily just regulate sleep itself. It's located in the hypothalamus, which is nested in the center of the brain, and it controls all rhythmic activity that goes on into the human body. The principle of the circadian rhythm is quite complex. And so, but if I was to explain it to you and break it down really simply, the clock kind of runs as a mechanical watch. So as one gene is activated, it will then activate the next gene, which will activate the next gene, which will then help regulate the circadian rhythm. So if we look at the cogwheels in a watch, one needs to start turning before another one starts turning, which will then make all of them turn together, which is kind of the same principle as to what the circadian rhythm is. The circadian rhythm relies on external stimuli, more specifically the light-dark cycle, in order to be synchronized and work properly. And proper synchronization is important because it allows to have general overall homeostasis of the entire body. And when it comes to sleep deprivation, there's a number of effects that happen on the human body. In fact, in 1965, a 17-year-old named Randy Gardner stayed up for 264 hours, which actually is 11 days. And he did this for the good of science. So after the second day, his eyes weren't able to focus very much, and he lost the ability to identify objects through touch. And by the third day, he was moody and very uncoordinated. And by the end of the experiment, he was struggling to really concentrate. He had trouble with his long-term and short-term memory and became paranoid, and he was actually starting to hallucinate. And so sleep deprivation does have very significant effects on the human body itself. Losing shut-eye does have other effects on the body in terms of hormonal regulations, and it actually can lead to developing certain illnesses. So we're actually only beginning to understand why we sleep, but what we do know is that sleep deprivation isn't just a minor inconvenience. Sleeplessness can cause a number of different effects on the body itself, such as inflammation, high blood pressure, and it can actually lead to diabetes and obesity as well. So why do we sleep? Well, we sleep because it's important for both physical and mental health. It also helps improve attention, alertness, and vigilance, and it improves overall production and quality of life. It's also really important for the body's physiology, memory, and learning. And so Next, we're gonna talk about some sleep hygiene rules that are really important to follow. Not necessarily just half an hour before going to bed, but really throughout the day. So sleep hygiene is defined as a variety of different practices and habits that are necessary to have a good nighttime sleep quality and a full daytime alertness. So here are some examples as to what some sleep hygiene rules might be. Simple things that might not seem so simple if you haven't been doing it, but going to bed and waking up at the same time every day. Avoiding caffeine, especially in the hours of the afternoon and especially before going to bed. Exposing yourself to bright, natural light in the morning. Make sure your room is conducive to sleep. Don't go to bed feeling hungry or too full. Develop a relaxing routine before going to bed. Make sure that your bedroom is reserved for sleeping, and exercise regularly during the day. So what I thought for this presentation is that I would kind of pick a couple sleep hygiene rules amongst other that weren't necessarily listed in the list we just saw, and kind of dive more deeply into these so that we can understand why we do these sleep hygiene practices and how they benefit our overall sleep. So the first one I want to talk about is having a strict sleep schedule. So it's really important to wake up at the same time, weekdays like weekends, like your days off, which I know sounds really painful, and I personally don't do it, but it will help synchronize the circadian rhythm. The fixed sleep and wake helps build the desire to wake up the next morning, and also helps build the desire to go to bed at night as well. So it's important to pick a time that actually fits with your daily lifestyle. So if you work or if you have to go to school during the day and you have to be there for 8 o'clock, pick a time that will fit best for your schedule for you. So this matters because wake time is the anchor to your day. Our bodies rely on the circadian rhythm, which itself relies on consistency. Anchoring your wake time will act as a cue for your body to know that it's either time to wake up or it's time to start preparing itself to start going to bed. It builds a strong desire to sleep through wakefulness, and this sleep drive gradually builds, and shortening it by sleeping in will make it harder to fall asleep the next night. So this means basically that if you're used to waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and the next day you decide to wake up at 8 o'clock and you're still going to bed at the same time, you basically slept longer, so you deregulated your cycle, so it'll be harder to fall asleep the next night. Consistency is key, and it requires really ruling yourself with an iron fist. The same bedtime every night helps the mind and body anticipates that it's time to go to bed soon. Environmental cues do trigger fatigue, therefore mitigating the hormones responsible for sleep onset. By going to bed at the same time, it's an additional environmental cue that helps the body know that it's time to go to bed. Going to bed at the same time every day will also ensure that sleep duration does range between that recommended 7 to 8 hours per night. The next one is exercise. And so again, we're going to reference Shakespeare that said, "Sleep that knits up the rivaled sleep of care, the death of each day, life soars labor's bath," which means if you don't sleep well, you're not going to be able to get what you need to do done during the day, especially when it comes to physical labor. However, that physical labor also helps you sleep better at night as well. So it also highlights that bidirectional relationship between sleep and exercise. But with the evolution of technology, and now that we know a little bit more about the science behind this fact, the link between sleep and physical activity has been postulated over and above in a lot of discussion notion that sleep is good for exercise and vice versa. As a matter of fact, when it comes to the mechanisms behind why exercise is good for sleep, Jeff Vine and his colleagues actually stated 2 hypotheses. The first one is that exercise helps to stabilize the circadian rhythm. And the second one is that vigorous exercise helps with symptoms of mental health, reduces overall stress, and plays an important role in sleep onset and maintenance of sleep. And so sleep is actually an inexpensive, pretty accessible, and non-pharmacological way to deal with some issues when it comes to sleep. The next one is is a little bit controversial. Some people do say eat before bed, other people say don't eat before bed, even though it can be quite tempting. When after a long day's work, after dinner, you reach for a bag of chips or you pop yourself a bag of popcorn and you want to sit in front of the TV and relax after your long day. It's controversial. And so I think the issue here is that we need to define what is eating before bed. There are issues that support both sides of the argument. So one side of the argument thinks that if you eat before bed, it's going to lead to weight gain. But if you don't eat before bed, then you're going to be hungry all night. And it could actually lead to drops in blood sugar levels, which will then cause insomnia and restless sleep. And so research shows that if you're hungry before bed, you eat, because you wouldn't go the whole day without eating, so why would you go all night without eating? Because we're still going a pretty prolonged period of time while we're sleeping without having access to that food. And if you're worried that your basal metabolic rate slows down during you sleep, it doesn't. It won't necessarily affect you while you're sleeping, because your basal metabolic rate stays the same throughout the night as well. And so if you're hungry, research recommends that you have a light snack before going to bed. Now, after saying this, you're probably wondering what you should be eating before bed and how much. And so I found a couple examples of things you should eat before bed if you are hungry. So the first one is almonds. Almonds are an excellent source of nutrients. They're rich in healthy monosaturated fats, fiber, and antioxidants, and they're claimed to help with sleep quality because they have a great source of melatonin. Melatonin is a sleep-regulated hormone that is naturally secreted in the body, especially in the hours of the night. So if you're hungry before bed and you want a quick and easy snack, try reaching for about an ounce, which is a handful of almonds before going to sleep, and that should be adequate before going to bed. The next one is turkey. Turkey is a high source of protein, which is good for keeping your muscles strong and also regulating your appetite. It's said that turkey is good to promote sleep, although it's lacking a little bit of scientific evidence. But if you celebrate Thanksgiving, you could probably agree that you kind of go into a turkey coma after dinner. And so people say that even though it promotes sleep, science says that turkey contains a high amount of amino acids, tryptophan, which increases the production of melatonin, which again is that hormone that is secreted overnight. The recommended portions for turkey is again about an ounce, which would probably weigh out to be in the size of your palm. The next one was really surprising to me. Kiwi is probably the best fruit to eat before bed. It's low in calories and very nutritious. And in a 4-week study, adults consumed 2 kiwis 1 hour before bed each night, and their ability to fall asleep increased by 5%, and their total sleep time also increased by 13%. And the science behind kiwi is that it's thought to increase the concentration of serotonin in the body. So they have a very high concentration of serotonin. Serotonin being a brain chemical that is really important for regulating the sleep cycle. So the recommended portion is for adults is 2 kiwis 1 hour before going to bed. The next one is fatty fish, more specifically salmon, tuna, trout, or mackerel. These fish are high in vitamin D's and omega-3 acids, which when combined are believed to increase the production of serotonin in the brain. So a 6-month study showed that males that consume 300 grams of salmon 3 times a week 1 hour before bed fell asleep about 1 hour quicker when compared to males that consume chicken, pork, or beef. Again, the recommended portions of fish to be eating before going to bed is just a few ounces, and that should be doing the trick. So if you're not a fan of the 4 foods that I've just listed, other foods that are really good to help with sleep are white rice, which white rice doesn't seem to be very nutritious, but it does have a high glycemic index, which seems to help with sleep quality. And people that ate white rice, it was shown that it was associated with better sleep and longer sleep duration as well. The next one is walnuts. It's very high in over 19 different vitamins and fiber in only 1 ounce of serving, and it helps to reduce appetite very quickly as well. Walnuts have been claimed to improve sleep quality because they're a good source of melatonin as well. Chamomile tea helps to reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, which are known to affect sleep as well. In a study with 34 adults who consumed 270 milligrams of chamomile tea twice daily for 28 days, they reported falling asleep about 15 minutes faster and experiencing less nighttime awakening. Tart cherry juice is known to promote sleepiness as well and has been studied for quite some time in the role of relieving insomnia. The juice contains high concentrations of melatonin, and in 2 studies with adults who suffered of insomnia, who drank about 8 ounces of tart cherry juice twice a day for 2 weeks, they slept about an hour and a half longer than what they did when they weren't drinking the tart cherry juice. And the last one is passion tea flower. This one has the potential of reducing anxiety, which, like I said before, is known to affect sleep. And in a 7-day study, adults that drank 1 cup a day before bed rated their sleep quality being significantly better. The next one we're going to talk about is the effects of sleep deprivation on body mass index. So this kind of loops back that what we do during the day does affect our sleep, but this one shows that how we sleep will also affect how we are during the day. And so body mass index is measured by dividing the body weight in kilograms by your height in meters square. And it would be considered as obesity if your body mass index is 30 kilograms per meter square or over. There's evidence that suggests that sleep deprivation plays an important role in the development of obesity. In fact, with this graph here, what we see is that individuals that slept on average 7.6 hours per night had the lowest BMI of them all, and individuals that slept 6 hours or 9 hours had higher BMIs as well. This one is a little disrupted, but the concept behind how sleep deprivation affects sleep returns to the circadian rhythm. So sleep curtailment or sleep disruption alters the circadian rhythm, which will then change hormonal secretion, more specifically in this case, ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, and leptin, which is the satiety hormone. This will then lead to deregulation of energy homeostasis and the metabolism, so your body isn't really all that well balanced anymore, which will then eventually lead to the development of obesity. This graph here shows after 1 night of sleep deprivation, there was a decrease in leptin, so that satiety hormone, and a significant increase in ghrelin, meaning people were more hungry and felt less satisfied after they eat. And so what we see here with the 23%, that global appetite also increased significantly after 1 night of sleep deprivation, and more specifically for foods that are high in carbohydrates, which I think we can all relate to. So why do these changes occur? Literature doesn't really state exactly why. We don't really know why. We just know that this is going on. But a couple hypotheses that has been stated is that alteration of appetite regulation following sleep deprivation may reflect a normal adaptation to the increased caloric need the body needs after being awake for extended periods of time. The second hypothesis is that changes in secretion of leptin and ghrelin may be associated with the increased sympathetic outflow that naturally occurs when the body goes through a period of sleep deprivation. The last point that I want to make is technology before bed. And so in the recent years, we've seen an increase in the use of technology throughout the day, but also before going to bed. So use of electronic devices for reading, communicating, or entertainment has really seemed to be affecting sleep quality and quantity in the past years. So the use of these devices immediately before bedtime increases alertness at that time specifically, which actually leads users to delay their bedtime. The use of electronics before bed prolongs the time it takes to fall asleep and delays the circadian clock, suppresses levels of melatonin, reduces the amount of time in REM sleep, and reduces alertness the following morning, which would make sense. If your sleep is disrupted throughout the night, the next morning you're gonna wake up feeling less alert. There's a study that was done on about 1,510 participants that showed 9 out of 10 Americans actually use technology before going to bed. And by technology, I mean light emitting technology, and TV was actually the most popular one. Those under the age of 30 were shown to be using cell phones before bed compared to those that were over the age of 30. And unlike passive technology like TV, iPods, and music players, the more interactive technology devices like computers, laptops, cell phones, or video games used the hour before bed showed that participants experienced more difficulties falling asleep and experience having less refreshing sleep. So what can you do before bed instead of playing on your phone or watching TV? Read a book for leisure. It's not really recommended to be reading your work stuff before going to bed or your school stuff before bed, because that kind of triggers off some thoughts and some anxiety maybe for certain people. Try drawing or coloring or doing a puzzle. Meditation has been shown to really help with sleep quality as well, or even just sitting there trying to empty your mind while you're sipping on a cup of tea. So some key take-home messages that I hope everybody will take from this presentation is that sleep is essential for overall health and well-being. Living a healthy day-to-day lifestyle will improve overall sleep quality. And don't forget to listen to your body, because it will tell you what you need. But also don't be afraid to push yourself, especially when it comes to waking up in the morning. Creating a pre-sleep routine will also help the body unwind before bed and kind of start cueing it that it's time to start relaxing before going to sleep. It's hard to shut down your brain or quiet anxiety or worrying thoughts when you're on the go before going to bed. Therefore, it's important to separate your day from your night. And considering your body's crave a routine and like to know what's coming, the bedtime routine will help prepare the body to alert it that it's time for bed. Also, try considering incorporating some sleep hygiene rules that we talked about today. Maybe don't try incorporating all of them at the same time, because that will definitely overstimulate your body a little bit and you might not find that it works, so you'll just give up on it. So try incorporating one of them at a time. Maybe pick the first one, which is waking up at the same time every day and going to bed at night at the same time. Try that for a couple weeks. Once you find that's working, try incorporating another one until you've incorporated the amount that you find improves your overall sleep quality. Are there any questions?
So, any questions from here?
One question. Yeah. So having the same, like you say, bedtime in terms of going to bed at night, waking up in the morning is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any suggestions though for many of the shift workers out there? Because obviously that's a bit of a challenge, but maybe some sleep hygiene or some other suggestions for those workers?
Yeah, I mean, just because it's written down doesn't necessarily mean that that's the one that's going to work for you. And so you don't have to check off all the boxes of sleep hygiene rules that are written down, or even if you look them up, there's so many of them. So if you're not able to wake up at the same time every day and go to bed at the same time every night, maybe try trying some other sleep hygiene rules that are suggested, like eating before bed or not eating before bed. Definitely trying to get that 7 to 8 hour amount of sleep before going to, or while you're sleeping as well, to kind of compensate for the lack of stability for the circadian rhythm. And definitely try exposing yourself to as much natural light as you can. So if you find that you're working shift work, you get home, you go right to bed, one suggestion that you can do is getting one of those lights for your house that emit vitamin D, which kind of stimulate the sun, so that will also help the body synchronize the circadian rhythm.
We do have a question from an online member.
Mm-hmm.
So are there any recommendations in the literature about how many days in a row a person needs to enforce bedtime or wake time before they see or feel an actual meaningful result?
Literature suggests about 2 weeks. The results are pretty quick, but it also depends how your circadian rhythm is. And so if for example, if your only struggle is that you've been going to bed really late at night and you're waking up really early in the morning, trying to stabilize your circadian rhythm to increase your sleep quality might not be as hard as compared to somebody that goes to bed at 8 o'clock one night, 11 o'clock the next night, that wakes up at 6 o'clock one morning, 10 o'clock the other morning. That doesn't really have any stability at all. So the literature shows that the results should actually be quite quick within 2 weeks. Okay. But if you don't see it after 2 weeks, just don't give up. Just keep on working on it, and eventually it will come.
Is there a time? So let's say if individuals have, they've tried to work on their sleep, they've tried these hygiene techniques, and it's still not working. Is perhaps also one of the recommendations that they might want to see a family physician because they may have some other underlying sleep disorders.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing, especially for sleep apnea, is if you find that you're snoring a lot and you're waking up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, you don't really have restful sleep often, more than 2 to 3 times a week, then that would be the recommendation to probably see the doctor. Otherwise, if you feel like it's just a lifestyle thing, probably give it a couple months. It didn't take one night to deregulate your circadian rhythm, so it's not going to take a couple weeks to get it back on track. So I would say definitely maybe give it 2 months to start seeing overall changes in your lifestyle. So my email is wrong.
Any other questions here? No? All right, I think that sums it up. Thank you, Alexie.